What if one simple sentence from Jimin BTS could make millions of people stop, look inward, and ask themselves a question they had been avoiding for years? What if those few words were not really about fame, success, or the glamorous life of a global superstar, but about something much more human? Letting go. Emptying the heart. Releasing the things that hurt us. And making room for happiness to return. This is the message from Jimin that has recently captured attention after the Economic Times highlighted his words as its quote of the day. But why did these particular words stand out? Why would an international economic newspaper choose a statement from Jimin for a feature normally associated with inspirational wisdom? And perhaps most importantly, what did Jimin really mean when he spoke about having a bigger heart, because you have let go and emptied many things? The answer may be much deeper than it first appears, because behind this seemingly simple sentence is a powerful idea about emotional growth, forgiveness, freedom, and the courage to move forward. The Economic Times published a quote of the day feature discussing Jimin's words in late July 2026. The article explored his message about emotional growth, letting go of negativity, and finding happiness and freedom after releasing things that no longer belong in our hearts. And this is where the story becomes much bigger than a celebrity headline. Because when someone like Jimin speaks about life, millions of people do not simply hear a quote. They search for themselves inside those words. Jimin said, "If your heart has grown bigger, that also means you have let go and emptied out many things." Think about that for a moment. A bigger heart. Most people would probably imagine that having a bigger heart means being able to hold more love, more memories, more people, more experiences, more emotions. But Jimin presents another possibility. Perhaps having a bigger heart does not mean holding on to everything. Perhaps it means knowing what you need to release. And that is not easy. Every person has something they struggle to let go of. For some, it is regret. For others, it is anger. For someone else, it may be a painful memory that happened many years ago. There are people who smile every day while secretly carrying a wound nobody knows about. There are people who continue blaming themselves for mistakes they made long ago. There are people who cannot stop thinking about what might have happened if they had made a different decision. And there are people who are still carrying the words of someone who hurt them. That is why Jimin's message feels so universal. It is not only for ARMY. It is not only for young people. It is for anyone who has ever felt emotionally exhausted from carrying something for too long. The Economic Times connected Jimin's message with emotional growth and the idea that becoming stronger does not necessarily mean collecting more experiences or carrying more burdens. Sometimes, growth happens when we learn what to leave behind. And perhaps that is exactly why this message feels so powerful. Because as people grow older, they begin to understand something that is difficult to learn when they are young. Life is not only about gaining. Sometimes life is also about losing, about accepting, about forgiving, and about finally telling yourself, "I don't want to carry this anymore." Jimin's message invites us to reconsider what strength really means. Does being strong always mean holding on? Does strength mean enduring everything? Or can the greatest form of strength sometimes be knowing when to release something? That question takes us to the heart of Jimin's message. Because letting go does not necessarily mean forgetting. Letting go does not mean pretending that something painful never happened. It does not mean saying that someone else's actions were acceptable. And it does not mean erasing the past. Letting go can simply mean accepting that something happened while refusing to allow that experience to control the rest of your life. That distinction is incredibly important. Imagine your heart as a room. If that room is filled with anger, fear, regret, disappointment, and resentment, it may not matter how large the room is. It will still feel crowded. But when you finally put some of those burdens down, something changes. Suddenly, there is space. Space to breathe. Space to smile. Space to love. Space to hope. Space to begin again. Maybe that is what a bigger heart really means. Not a heart that is more crowded, but a heart that is more free. And that is why Jimin's words feel like more than an ordinary motivational quote. They remind us that life does not always require us to carry every part of our past into the future. Some things are meant to stay behind. And for viewers who have already traveled through many stages of life, that message may feel even more meaningful. Because the longer we live, the more memories we collect. There are people who came into our lives, people who left, dreams that came true, dreams that never happened, decisions we still regret, goodbyes we never completely understood, and moments we wish we could relive. But life keeps moving. Sometimes we do not need a new answer. We simply need the courage to release an old question. That may be one of the deepest reasons Jimin's words resonate. He is not telling people to become perfect. He is not promising that life will suddenly become easy. Instead, the message touches something deeply human. We do not have to carry everything forever. The Economic Times placed Jimin's words within a broader discussion about emotional freedom, happiness, forgiveness, healing, and personal growth. And that gives the quote an even greater meaning. Jimin is widely recognized not only as a member of BTS, but also as a singer, songwriter, composer, and performer whose artistic journey has connected deeply with themes of emotion and identity. As a solo artist, he released Face in 2023 and Muse in 2024. But numbers, achievements, awards, and global recognition are not necessarily what make this particular message powerful. What makes it powerful is its humanity. Behind the cameras, the stages, the lights, and the global attention is a person who has also experienced pressure, uncertainty, change, and the process of understanding himself. And when someone who lives under constant public attention speaks about emotional freedom, it naturally raises a question. Have we misunderstood what strength really is? Maybe strength is not always about holding on. Maybe sometimes strength is about knowing when to stop holding something that is hurting you. Because every person watching this video may have something they need to release. Maybe it is anger. Maybe it is fear. Maybe it is guilt. Maybe it is a relationship that ended years ago. Maybe it is the belief that you were never good enough. Or perhaps it is an older version of yourself that you have been trying to carry into a future where it no longer belongs. And there is something else worth remembering. Letting go does not mean that the past had no value. It means that the past no longer gets to decide everything about your future. You can remember without returning. You can forgive without reconnecting. You can love someone without carrying the pain they left behind. You can accept what happened without allowing it to define who you are forever. And perhaps that is the most mature meaning behind Jimin's message. A bigger heart does not necessarily come from having more. Sometimes it comes from needing less. Less anger. Less fear. Less resentment. Less guilt. Less pressure to be understood by everyone. And less desire to change something that cannot be changed. That is where the story becomes even more fascinating. Because the real question is no longer simply, what did Jimin say? The real question becomes, what are we still carrying that we were never meant to carry forever? Is it anger? Is it regret? Is it fear? Is it disappointment? Is it the memory of someone? Or perhaps, that is exactly why one sentence from Jimin can feel so personal to millions of people. Now let us look at the deepest part of Jimin's message. We do not always grow by adding something. Sometimes, we grow by removing something. Removing hatred. Removing guilt. Removing fear. Removing the need to constantly explain ourselves to other people. Removing the weight of the past. And perhaps the hardest one of all, removing the desire to change something that cannot be changed. The Economic Times presented Jimin's message as a reminder that healing requires courage, and that letting go can create space for freedom and happiness. But there is an important distinction here. We do not have to erase painful experiences. We can remember them. We can learn from them. We can acknowledge that they hurt. But we do not have to continue living inside that pain. And perhaps this is one of the most mature lessons we can take from Jimin's words. There is a difference between remembering the past and living in the past. We can look backward without going back. We can appreciate memories without allowing those memories to control our future. We can forgive someone without inviting them back into our lives. And we can accept that something ended without believing that our own story ended with it. This message has no age limit. A young person can hear it and discover courage. A mother can hear it and remember her own journey. Someone who has lived through decades of happiness and hardship may hear it and think, "I wish I had understood this earlier." But perhaps it is never too late to let go. There is no specific age at which a person is allowed to begin again. There is no deadline for making peace with yourself. And there is no rule saying that we must carry pain simply because that pain has been part of our past for a long time. This is where the educational side of Jimin's message becomes especially meaningful. Emotionally, we often mistake holding on for strength. We hold on to anger because we think it protects us. We hold on to resentment because we fear that letting go means someone else has won. We hold on to regret because we believe punishing ourselves somehow makes up for what happened. But eventually, who becomes exhausted? We do. Letting go is not necessarily surrender. It can be an act of self-respect. It can be the moment when we tell ourselves, "I have carried this long enough. Now I want to live." And perhaps that is why Jimin's words feel so powerful. He does not describe happiness as something that must always come from outside. He points toward the space inside ourselves. We often search for happiness through achievements, through money, through relationships, through recognition, through success, through the approval of other people. But there is another kind of happiness, a quieter kind. The happiness of finally sleeping peacefully after years of replaying the same painful memory. The happiness of no longer needing everyone to approve of you. The happiness of seeing someone who once hurt you without feeling your entire world collapse again. The happiness of finally saying, "I am going to be okay." Not because life has become perfect, but because your heart is no longer at war with your past. And perhaps this is why Jimin's words feel so close to so many people. Throughout his artistic journey, Jimin has often been associated with emotional themes, vulnerability, identity, and self-reflection. So when an international publication highlights one of his thoughts as a quote of the day, the focus naturally moves beyond Jimin as an idol. It becomes a conversation about the message itself. And perhaps that is one of the most interesting forms of influence. Not when an artist makes millions of people scream, but when an artist makes millions of people become quiet and think. Maybe after hearing Jimin's words, an army suddenly remembers someone. Maybe they remember a goodbye. Maybe they remember a failure. Maybe they remember a period when they felt like they were not enough. Maybe they realize that they have been far too hard on themselves. Because sometimes we find it easier to forgive other people than to forgive ourselves. We tell our friends, "You did your best. It is okay. Everyone makes mistakes." But when the mistake belongs to us, the words suddenly become much harsher. We should have done better. We should have known. We should have tried harder. We offer compassion to other people while refusing to give ourselves the same compassion. And that is where the idea of emptying the heart becomes so interesting. Emptying the heart does not mean leaving it empty forever. It means removing what no longer belongs there, so that something better has room to enter. Think about a house. If every room is filled with old things that you no longer use, there is no room for anything new. The same can happen inside the heart. If we fill our hearts with regret, there may be little space left for hope. If we fill them with resentment, there may be little space left for peace. If we fill them with fear, there may be little space left for courage. And if we fill them entirely with the past, we may not notice that the future is standing at the door. That may be why Jimin's sentence feels so powerful. It is only one sentence. But it opens so many questions. What have we been holding on to? What is already time to release? And who will we become once those burdens are no longer controlling us? The answer will be different for everyone. For one person, letting go may mean forgiveness. For another, it may mean stopping the habit of blaming themselves. For someone else, it may mean accepting that a relationship has ended. For another person, it may mean accepting themselves after years of trying to become what everyone else expected. There is no single answer. But there is one thing that may be universal. Every person deserves the opportunity to feel free. And perhaps that is what makes Jimin's message so universal. It is not really directed toward one generation. It speaks to human beings. To people who are happy. To people who are grieving. To people who are trying to recover. To people who believe they are too late. And to anyone quietly asking, "Can I still start again?" Maybe the answer is yes. As long as there is still room in your heart to hope. Jimin may be known around the world through music, stages, choreography, and his voice. But there are moments when an artist becomes something more than an entertainer. They become someone who helps other people find words for emotions they could never explain themselves. And perhaps that is what happened with this quote. Jimin gave simple language to something incredibly complicated. Growing does not always mean becoming more full. Sometimes growing means becoming lighter. Being strong does not always mean holding on. Sometimes being strong means releasing. Having a big heart does not mean carrying every wound. Sometimes having a big heart means learning how to make peace. And perhaps in the end, that is the real meaning behind Jimin's words. It is not about forgetting the past. It is not about pretending you were never hurt. It is not about saying everything is fine when it is not. It is about choosing not to let the past determine your entire future. That is freedom. And perhaps, that is happiness.